Hey, what's up guys? This is Anthony from Anthony's Customs, and for this review, we are looking at McFarlane's Doomslayer figure, which is one figure that I know got some people's jimmies rustled when they first announced it. What's this? A Doom figure? This is going to be amazing. And then people saw that it was being made by McFarlane. And then they said, well, that's probably not going to be very amazing. And I'll tell you what, they were right. This figure is a great example of why I almost never get review samples from companies, because I'm going to tear this figure a new one. It is not an action figure. Not really, anyway. Only in definition. Let's go ahead and get it off the stand and take a closer look. This guy stands just about 19.5 centimeters, which makes him pretty close to, let's say, 7 5/8 inches. And the reason I say he's an action figure in definition only is that he does technically have articulation and you can technically pose him. However, you really can't. Practically speaking, it's basically a crappy statue. And so that's why I said it's only by definition an action figure. It's really not. It's really what McFarlane wants to do, which is to not make action figures. But he has to, because nobody buys the crappy little statues anymore that he used to make, or at least they didn't want to, so he moved to this. As far as I can tell, I'm not saying I happen to know any information from the inside workings of his company, but that's what it seems like. I think most of you can corroborate that by just looking at the store shelves. So, this guy. There's a lot of sculpt work on it. There's like 4 colors of paint, and it seems to be missing almost all the detail. The sculpt is there. I'll give him that. The sculpt is there. It's a little soft, but it's not bad. But let's just look at this real quick, the front of the box. And we'll look at his face. Because I can see like not painting the little red dots in there. Let me zoom in so you can see this. So I can understand not painting the little red dots and whatnot. That makes sense. But how about like half the face is supposed to be gray? Half the top of the head is supposed to be gray. They just missed entire blocks of color, entire chunks of things. It's so lacking in detail. There's no other artwork on here. I guess you can look at the shoulder a little bit. They missed entire chunks of color on the shoulder as well. This whole section's supposed to be gray or silver. It's not. They didn't paint any of the detail work on the orange part. They didn't paint any of the gray around on the collar part. They just totally decided to do as few colors as possible. Wasn't McFarlane making Gears of War figures before NECA did? That was right before I started collecting, so I think I bought some, but I can't remember for sure. Anyway, this guy is basically a Gears of War figure, in terms of he's bulky and armored and everything. And even if McFarlane didn't do it, NECA did, they could have scooped one of those up and looked at it and been like, hey, that's a good example for how to make this guy. This guy's a bag of garbage, I'm telling you. We'll get to the articulation in a second, but look how sloppy the paint is. It looks like a little kid colored it with crayons, or some watercolors. There's just no detail paintwork. It's just muddy colors with some silver dry brushing in a few areas. It's so gross looking. It's not an appealing thing to have on your shelf. And I get it, it's like pea soup green and brown, but you can make that look good, like it's a cool character model normally. McFarlane just didn't bother. The sculpt work's not bad. You can see down here at the boots, for example, they did put some detail in there. And it's not that soft of a sculpt, it's fairly hard-edged, but the paint that they used, or the paint job they did, doesn't do it any favors. They basically did brown with like a rust wash, and then a silver dry brush, but without any actual placement of anything. It just becomes a muddy mess. It's really gross looking, especially this orange part. Ugh, it looks like the crappiest little paint set you had like when you're in kindergarten. Gross. The only thing that's really a redeeming factor for this thing aesthetically is the visor is gloss black and it looks super nice, but that's hardly enough. They put one little spot of red on here. When he's loaded with dots of red, they didn't put any on there, so that really detracts from the design as well. So aesthetically speaking, this figure gets a 3 out of 10. Looks kind of like a polished turd. Alright. Oh, also, the skin tone is kind of weird and also really like plasticky looking. Alright, on to the accessories. We do get his little wrist blade thingy which snaps on, and it's pretty good. It's a nice sculpt and it snaps on, so that's okay. And then we get his gun, which is some sort of double-barreled shotgun, and it's actually really nicely done. It's got nice hard-edge sculpt and the paintwork on it's really clean. So the accessories look better than the whole figure. And then lastly, we get a little Doom display stand. Mine happens to have a big circle on it, which looks like crap. That's not supposed to be there, but it's just a little plastic disc harkening back to the old days of McFarlane, with a little peg in it and the word Doom. So accessory wise, 3 out of 10. Doom, a game all about guns and stuff, we get 1 gun. And he holds it only acceptably. So accessories are garbage. Time for the articulation. All right, the head is on a double ball peg, which you would think, that's great. His head is completely hollow. So it's on a double ball peg, but if you pose it, it's gonna look terrible. Anything other than rotating it. Yeah, it has like, it can do that. Why? Why can it do that? Why do we need that range of articulation? Do the people making these figures not understand what articulation is for? The purpose of it is to pose the figure as it would be posed in its source material. I don't think the Doomslayer guy does that. I don't think so. I could be wrong. I don't think when you lift his head, you should be able to see inside, all the way up to his, like this looks like a helmet without a head in it. Why is there no neck? Why is there no bottom part of the head? Why is it just a flat cut right here where the peg connects? Why is it not designed like an action figure should be designed? Like even the most rudimentary action figures have necks. Figure Arts Mario. It's just gross. Alright, and then on the back we have a ball peg for the gun thing, a swivel right here, and another ball peg up here. So it moves around a little bit, and that's fine. I mean, it's okay. It's a really soft sculpt, but it's there, so that's alright. Shoulder pads are double ball pegged, which I think is hilarious, because the shoulders themselves are trash. Garbage, dumpster fire, insulting garbage trash. So the shoulder pads are nice. The shoulders can go out that far. So if you ever really wanted to do a nice pose with this guy, don't bother. You can't. That's as far as they go. And that's because they put the ball hinge in there, which is actually a really nice sized ball hinge, but then they sculpted the shoulder basically all the way up to the other part of the shoulder. And so you have no range at all. You can rotate the arm kind of, but it doesn't go forward. It sticks out to the side quite severely. And obviously it rotates all the way around at a very severe angle. So basically no posability there. There is a swivel up there, but because of the way they sculpted it, you can't use the swivel. So forget about trying to hold a gun with two hands. It's gonna be awkward as hell if you can manage to force it, but it can't really do it. And then we have the elbows, which are the jankiest elbow design I've probably ever seen. That's not really a design anybody's ever used for elbows, and there's kind of a reason for that. It's terrible. It's really, really bad. It's a lot like the DCUC style figures, except they at least worked. This one doesn't even go 90 degrees. It's ugly as hell and still doesn't go 90 degrees. Why are his forearms so skinny? There's no, like, look at the skin part of the forearm where the peg is. Look how little it is compared to the rest of the arm. It's the weirdest looking thing. And yes, the biceps are supposed to be wider this way and the forearms are supposed to be wider this way, but this is not right. This is not how it's supposed to look. This is terrible. A buddy of mine took a NECA Akuma and put new arms on this guy and like kind of stole some of the armor and whatever. Made the figure look so much better. I don't know if he wants me to call him out or anything, so I won't say his name, but it looks so much better than this because this is just gross. And here's the funny thing, he's got ball hinge wrists. But look at the range for the ball hinge. There's no gap anywhere for them to be used. It's just a swivel. Why? Why? It's so bad. I assume there's a single, maybe a double ball peg at the top and probably a single down here, but it doesn't do anything. It barely even rotates. Look at it. It doesn't lean really at all. It's basically just wiggles. So gross. This figure is disgusting. It's actually a little bit insulting that they made this. Alright, okay, moving on to the hips. Now get ready for this. This is really impressive right here. I want to show you the hip range. Going out to the side, we've got decent range. Look at the design for this guy. Look how big his ass cheek area is and where the joints are and how small they are. They don't function properly because they're too little. So his hips go out to the side pretty far. That's a really useful pose, I think. You might want to do that. Let's say maybe you wanted to put him in like a running pose, or even like a kind of running pose, or even a walking pose. That's what you can do. What is that, 15 degrees? Probably not even. 15 total, maybe. Not from center. You can't pose this guy at all. There's a rotation in the thigh, a thigh swivel. Look at that. They rock in just a little bit. Like 2 degrees. They don't swivel out at all because of the shape of the leg. It's like 4 feet long from front to back. God, this is such a bad design. This is an embarrassing design, honestly, for whoever worked out on it. I'm sorry, guys. It's bad. Really, really bad. So the knee joint gives you about 90 degrees. And I guess it's okay. It's really weird the way they did it. You have a giant gap in the front, like humongous gap. And you can't use the knee joint anyway. So, I mean, because you can't use the hips. So that's really worthless. And then the ankles are ball hinges, but they don't have anywhere to go. There's no range. So you can't pose the feet either. So you're gonna buy this 20 plus point articulation action figure, and he's gonna stand in an A pose, like this, holding his gun in his hand. It's a terrible action figure. It's a terrible sculpted statue too, because the sculpt is so mediocre, and then the paint's even worse. So anyway, articulation on this guy gets a 2 out of 10. It's terrible. So final verdict on this guy: don't freaking buy this steaming pile of garbage unless you just want him to stand there like this. And if you don't look at him too close, it'll look okay-ish. So if you're a big Doom fan, then you have this tiniest reason to buy this. But if you actually wanted an action figure out of this guy, it's really, really not worth it. It's so incredibly bad. It's one of the laziest action figures I've ever seen, I think, of all time. It's that gross and disappointing, and I'm insulted for those of you who are Doom fans, because I feel like they're trying to manipulate you guys by selling you something you've been wanting for 20 years. And then it turns out it's actually a big piece of shit. So I think it sucks, and I think you shouldn't buy it. Final verdict: 0 out of 10. It's a piece of garbage. Don't buy it. Alright, thanks for watching, guys. If you enjoyed this video, please do give it a thumbs up. If you didn't, that's okay. Let me know in the comment section below how much you hate me. And if you haven't subscribed, you might want to, because I have new videos out just about every single day, and thousands already on the channel. So make sure you come back for all of that. And in the meantime, keep collecting.